for this photo op. So John Fowler, along with my team, introducing AJ Preller, and after they finish up with this photo op, they'll have questions entertained from the San Diego media.
Thanks, guys. We're going to open it up to questions now. Kevin has a mic. Pass around the line. Please state your name and affiliation. First question.
Hey Jay, first of all, congratulations. John Quintero from the Mighty 1090. And I don't know if you'd want to answer this question or the owners or Mike. Any restrictions from Texas on who you can bring from their organization?
Yeah, I'll handle that one. You know, in baseball, you need to get permission to seek, employment or have a discussion with somebody who's under contract, and as part of that understanding, there are some restrictions that we agreed to with the Rangers, but we're confident that AJ's vast network, along with the existing staff, most importantly that we have in place here, that we're going to have the best front office in baseball, and at some point maybe some of those folks from Texas make their way here, but that's not a near-term consideration.
AJ, welcome to San Diego. Kyle Kraska with CBS 8. Has the fate of Bud Black already been discussed or decided, and ultimately will that be your decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, just in general, is, I mean, you don't know anybody until you work with them on a day-to-day basis. You know, from afar, my impression of Bud Black has been a very positive one. You know, and looking forward to, you know, in the next few months, and, you know, getting together and talking to him more day to day, being around the big league club. You know, and working with him on a daily basis. But it's I think in the game, he has a very positive reputation, and look forward to being around day to day and talking to him.
AJ, Lee Hamilton, covering the Padres. What do you inherit? What's your perspective outside the circle of what you're taking on here, and how close is this to being very good? And the second part of the question, Cuba, Dominican, Japan, San Diego has not really done much with success outside of Despaigne. How do you fix that? Is it just dollars? Is boots on the ground? What is it? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as far as you know, current big league club, I mean, I think obviously, you know, looking at from pitching standpoint, it's impressive. You know, there's starting pitching here. There's you know, there's been obviously guys that take the mound every day, give the team a chance to win on a day-to-day basis. You know, it seems like from an offensive perspective, you know, I think that's a spot where in the last few weeks the team, you know, from afar again, like the team has played, you know, more energetic baseball. Offensive side in the second half looks like, you know, they swung the bats a little bit better. You know, but in general, I think, you know, you never have enough talent. Like, talent wins games. Talent and makeup wins championships. I think it's going to be a mantra, you know, throughout that. You know, we're going to look to find more. I mean, you always want to have waves of talent, waves of players, depth. Sometimes you think you have, you know, 3 first basemen, and one guy gets hurt, one guy may not pan out the way you want it, and somebody else maybe gets dealt in a trade, and you look up and you know, you don't have any. I mean, the old mantra, you needs 10 pitchers to get 1. So I think from that standpoint, we're going to look to, you know, to add as much talent as we can possible, and I think, you know, that's obviously going to be needed to win a championship over here. As far as the second part of the question on the international scouting, Dominican, Cuba, you know, it's a huge part of the game. I mean, obviously, baseball internationally is a big part, and I think, you know, I think you just turn on your TV every single night at 7 o'clock or at 10 o'clock or at 4 o'clock, and, you know, there's an international player doing something special, doing something on the field that is impactful, and I think it's an area that every organization's gotta you know, needs to get a competitive advantage in. And I think it's going to be an area that we're going to focus on, along with amateur, along with pro. You know, we're going to look to hopefully be competitive in every one of those areas.
AJ, Ben Higgins, 10 News. What is it that you think you did to earn the label Maverick, as you used earlier around baseball?
I don't know, maybe spent, I don't know, maybe about 3 million miles on American Airlines. I don't know, over the last few years. I think that was probably asked in the interview process, honestly, and I mean, really, it was nothing that, you know, I don't think anybody, myself or any of the group that worked with over the last 10 years, it wasn't like a goal of ours to try and like tweak the system or anything like that. I think honestly, you're just looking to find value, and I think you're looking to encourage people to be creative, and to find that value. You know, sometimes you have to be creative in order to get impact players. It's a competitive marketplace out there, and I think sometimes maybe maybe some people ran with that, but overall, it's really no secret. It's about making good decisions, good evaluations, doing your homework. And I think you do that time and time again at every spot throughout the organization. You're in a spot where you can beat some other clubs.
Welcome, AJ. Will Laws for MLB.com. This question is for Mike or Ron. How did AJ distinguish himself, especially in the second round of interviews, from all the other candidates, and when was this decision finalized?
Sure. Well, first of all the candidates were very strong in the second round, but it was the energy, what I'll call the encyclopedic knowledge of baseball, whether it be professional, amateur, or whatever, and I got an expression I've used for years, and it's keep on redefining the game until you find one you can win. He expressed that in everything we talked about. He had an attitude of we're going to tweak this, we're going to do that, just a winning attitude, and there was an energy that came through loud and clear in literally every step of our discussion, and he did a great job of, in our mind, nailing what the Padres have to do to be able to compete in what I'll call a David versus a Goliath involvement. Everybody sitting at this table is bought into competing with the big guys, and AJ expressed it in a very, very good manner and convinced us that he was the best guy to lead us going forward.
And what was that?
What was that? I think he touched on it earlier. You got to look at all the elements. We weren't very involved in international before. We've got to get involved in international. You got to work harder. You got to have more people out there, and you got to have consistency throughout the organization in terms of how you're going to do things. And he hit on that repeatedly in our discussions. And I've never been with an individual who understood personnel at all levels of baseball to the extent that AJ Preller does. It was an unbelievable education in terms of who does what to whom and how it gets done.
AJ, Matt Calkins, San Diego Union Tribune. Two-part question. First, how quickly can this team be competitive? And by competitive, I mean competing for a division, making the postseason. The second part is, what can you accomplish in these last 2 months, you think, significant going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I never really like to put a time frame, like a specific time frame. I mean, I know just drawing from the experience with the Rangers, I think at one point in time, the Rangers had talked about, hey, they thought they might have a group of players coming up that would probably be competitive in 2011 was a target date. And you look up in 2009, the team had a very competitive season, and 10, they were right there with a chance to win the World Series and got to the World Series. So not a huge frame of time, of a timeline. I think the biggest thing is to assess accurately, where your window is and where you're at in kind of the competitive spectrum of winning. You never really want to misevaluate that, and look to really make a huge push, maybe make some trades asset-wise that could help you over the course of a 3 or 4 year window if you're far away. And vice versa. If you're a little closer than you think, you need to accurately, monitor that. I think in the second half, honestly, like in today's baseball, you never say never on anything. I mean, you see last homestand and played good baseball, and I think you just want to go out every single day. It seems like there's energy on the field. It seems like that the coaching staff and the manager felt that energy. And when you get consistent pitching and with that second wild card, you would never say never to anything. I think the biggest thing and at the trade deadline for the next period, as far as for the waiver deadline. You just want to make any decisions in the short term that may impact something positively for next year, or sacrifice something for the next couple of years. And I think we will probably be cognizant of that, but understanding, hey, you want this team to go out second wild card, and you never know. You have a chance to compete every night and see what happens.
AJ, Troy Hirsch from Fox 5 here. Actually, first question for Ron was asked earlier, just to get a clarification. When was the deal finalized, Ron?
Has the deal been finalized, AJ? Have you signed the contract?
Feels like it.
Later today.
Later today.
That's a joke.
There are a lot of people with questions, by the way, as to when, and it wasn't. We went into the night last night, and quite honestly, AJ met with the people from the Rangers this morning. So he got on an airplane. Mike was on the airplane, by the way, and we got him back here. So we're here, and he still has time. He's got to sign his contract.
And then, AJ, the question for you is, you talk about hard work and doing your homework and all that. Is there a common denominator that you have found in evaluating talent of what you are looking for in a baseball player that projects down the line to be a successful player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably like in just my own scouting experiences. I think probably the first 2 or 3 years you're actually out in the field, it probably made some early errors in terms of maybe looking a little too closely at, especially on the international side, but really both internationally in the States and the draft, maybe looking more like raw tools, raw ability, and not really seeing how that plays on the field. And I think quickly make an adjustment and realize, hey, there's a that you got to have tools. You have to have a skill set though that plays on the field, and then mirror that up with a makeup component, with an intangible component, with an aptitude and instinct, a feel to play the game. And I know early in my scouting career maybe overlooked that a little bit, and obviously I think every single day more around the game, just having that intangible component in terms of what plays, what wins, what's winning baseball. The type of kids that achieve, the type of kids that overachieve. And you start to make a little bit of a model about what plays from a scouting standpoint.
AJ, Marty Caswell from the Mighty 1090. There are a couple of candidates that declined to interview for this job. What made this Padres job, this group, so attractive to you? And a second part, one of your colleagues described you as endearing, stat geek, and ruthless. Is that a fair description, and how would you describe yourself?
I think as far as what the attractiveness to the job, I think there are a lot of things. I think as I mentioned, I think the fact that the Padres organization had not won a World Series, it's intriguing to me, honestly. It's a situation, maybe a parallel to coming to the Rangers situation a few years back, where really not a ton of team success over the course of their history, and getting a chance to get your people on board and try to do something special together as a group to do something for the first time, and finding players that want to do that, finding coaches and managers that want to do that. That was an intriguing deal, and a chance to compete, against big clubs, big organizations, Dodgers, Giants, Rockies, Diamondbacks. And honestly, to me, like that was a challenge, and like the notion of that challenge. And then I think went into that first interview, eyes and ears open, and just kind of seeing if, from an ownership standpoint and from a front office standpoint, if it felt like there was a match there, and it was, an ownership group that was, I think basically like had ideas that, they wanted to build something for the long term. They wanted to build something first class in a way that was, maybe a little different, a little unique, and came out of that with a really positive feeling. And at that point, thought, okay, this may be a situation that I think is a pretty good spot. So.
What about the ruthless, endearing, and...
I was hoping we were going to overlook that. I was figuring someone might forget that after that answer I gave. I obviously like ruthless, endearing. I like the game. I love the game. I have a passion for it. I think a lot of people in baseball do, honestly. I think from like a staff standpoint with the Rangers, what I've seen in the last 10 years, treat people with a ton of respect, make it fun for them. And hopefully at press conferences don't have to answer to other people saying you're ruthless and stat geek.
AJ, Dennis Lynn, San Diego Union Tribune. You're coming from a pretty extreme ballpark in Texas. How does that affect or inform the way you look at things coming into here to Petco, which is kind of on the other end of the spectrum?
Yeah, I think it's I know it's something from experience when we first got over to Texas. Or there was always a lot of talk that you can't pitch in that ballpark. The heat, the jet stream to right center field. Pitchers weren't going to want to come there. And I think pretty quickly, like I think when we had lesser talent, honestly, when the Rangers had lesser talent, obviously at that point in time, I think those factors played out. I mean, when the Rangers went out and had Derek Holland pitching, and Yu Darvish and Neftali Feliz and C.J. Wilson, pretty quickly, like they started pitching at a pretty high level. I think same thing here in Petco. I think at the end of the day, the challenge for our staff is going to be to provide Bud, Black and his staff with talented impact performers, and hitters hit. Power guys at the end of the day perform. I think if you look, historically at some of the better hitters in Petco history, it's been guys that, have performed. It's guys with all-star background and guys that have plus tools and plus ability. And, I think at the end of the day, it's something from our standpoint, it's going to be a challenge to us to go acquire more talent and see how that plays on the Petco field.
AJ, Chris Jingles from the UT. The organizations you listed are some pretty big budget operations. Have you had to, or will you have to change your own expectations of budgets and the amount of money that you're going to have to work with?
No, I mean, I think at least like starting, like just my own experience starting with the Rangers. I mean, we went to the Rangers went to the World Series, I guess, in 2010 that first year, and I believe it was about a $55 million payroll, which I think at that time was 28th in the game. But I think what you have to do is, I mean, you look at today's baseball and there's a lot of parity. I mean, there's people from all different spectrums that are winning. I mean, you look at, obviously, you look at an Oakland A's club that, has not spent a ton of money. You look at an Anaheim Angels team right now that has spent some money. And, I think I don't see that as like any type of an excuse. I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is you can put a quality team on the field, whether it's a big payroll club or a medium payroll club. And I think the key is to put a team on the field that has a chance to win. And then I have a lot of confidence and faith in ownership that, at the right time, right moment, that may be 2 weeks from now, it might be 2 years from now, maybe 2 months from now, then you go to ownership and you say, hey, we've put a competitive quality club on the field, get us a piece to get us over the top, or let's talk about, an impactful piece to take us home. And I feel very confident that's going to be the case here. So I think you can win at any level, honestly. Just how you strategize, how you build your club, and then I do think there's going to be the capability here to put impactful pieces on the field and go ahead and try to see if you can build a championship type club. So.
All right. I have 2 questions. I'm going to get to question to you, AJ, in just a second, but first I want to ask something to Ron. Your partners across the street, the Chargers, when they reorganized themselves, they went with a very young core, a young general manager, a young coach. Is there a specific attribute about going young as you have today that maybe they see the world differently or it can analyze something differently than maybe someone of an older stature can't?
Me first. I think although AJ is young in age, he's an old soul. Some of his mentors are guys far closer to my age, and it's all about understanding the sport, understanding your priorities, and being able to execute those priorities. And we interviewed young because those were the people available, but I think AJ in 37 years has a vast array of experience. He's demonstrated success in all of them, and I think the Chargers did a great job in their selections. I think we did a great job here with AJ, and I think he will utilize people of all ages to take us forward.
Thank you. AJ, so we talked a lot about your idea of how you want to develop for the future, but obviously we still have to talk about the present. And right now, there's about $15 million on the line between Carlos Quinn, who still has problems getting on the field, and Cam, who also has problems getting on the field, but for different off-the-field reasons. How do you see those guys, and do you feel as if they're going to be a part of this team in the years to come?
I think the injury bug. I mean, obviously, I got a taste of it this year in Texas. I think obviously the Padres fans and Padre community has seen it, here over the last 2 to 3 years, and I think it's something, in general, like top to bottom in the game of baseball. I think maybe early on some people thought it was a fluky nature. Honestly, I don't have a ton of answers towards the injury situation, but I do know it's a situation like you look throughout baseball time and time again. Like even in the amateur draft this year, a lot of the top prospects, guys with arm injuries. You look throughout the organization, it's going to be a challenge for our group to figure out our situation specifically and throughout the game. Is there an answer that gives us a competitive advantage and enables us to put our best talent on the field? Obviously, that's the name of the game, is putting your guys on the field, and they don't do you any good if you're on the DL. So I think that's it's going to be a big challenge for our group to figure out, hey, what is that next wave? What's that next answer to get our guys on the field?
AJ, thank you. Mike, Ron, Peter, everyone, thanks for coming. We'll break for one-on-ones now. Thanks, guys.